Hi, book club members. I'm Jen.
And I'm Carrie.
And this is Warhammer 40k Book Club, where we read from your crag. This is episode number 52, and our book is Astorath, Angel of Mercy by Guy Haley. This book is about Astorath as he investigates some fallen members of the Red Wings. Chapter. Far as I can tell, this takes place after Devastation of Baal, but before Darkness in the Blood. We posted several questions on our website, WH40kbookclub.com, and we encourage participation in our conversations via Twitter, YouTube, our site, or Encrypted Vox channel. Spoiler warning, if you haven't yet read this book, that is
probably a lot of you.
I don't mean that as exclusionary as that sounds. But
so if you aren't one of the 1,250 people who got a copy,
they left us no choice.
Please
send all of your complaints to Black Library and the COVIDs. Just the COVIDs. Go to our site, check out the book and the questions, and come back to this episode as we'll be talking about it from start to finish in great detail. The good news is about this book, I don't really feel like there's any major spoiler in this book. I mean, if you're just one of those people who doesn't like spoilers, but it's not like, say, Penitent, where we reveal that Palpatine's behind it.
Or what was that Saint? So we got that book early too, because it's a collector's edition.
Right. Ephraim Stern.
Right. So, I mean, that was kind of a big spoiler in that she's back, kind of. And yeah, so no, there's nothing like that in this. And it's, I really can't tell if it takes place before or after Darkness in the Blood. There's a lot just kind of hanging in the air, and I don't think it matters, to be honest.
And so I actually had to look this up online because it was kind of bugging me because I couldn't really tell either. I had some questions.
I mean, it definitely happens after Devastation of Baal, because they talk about
definitely post Baal,
because the Red Wings didn't show up, and which explains a lot why they're even here, because when it started off with the Red Wings, I was like, I thought you guys were all kilt. You're not.
Didn't we get rid of you guys?
You're not flush terrors.
So I was actually a little disappointed about that when I saw the Red Wings. And again, it's just because that was one of the things that I liked, was that they were kind of cleaning stuff up. So when they were like, oh yeah, we're trying to rebuild the Red Wings, I was like, why though? I thought we cleaned house for a reason.
Yeah, by the way, Falcon called. He wants his bird back. Marvel jokes.
There's Marvel jokes, everyone. Deep cut Marvel jokes. So this book had a deep cut in it too, though. Anyways, did you like the book?
Nice. I don't know. I'm still mulling it over in my head, because there are a lot of things that I liked, but then there are a lot of things I was like, why though? What was the point? But then the more I think about it, the more I think I understand what's going on here. It would not surprise me at all if you did not like it. I mean, there were no chalices in here, but
okay,
it was still pretty dramatic.
Yes, so given his name, which, okay, we're just not going to keep Astorath. It's Astorath. Because with Astorath, I do always, every time I read the name Astorath, in my head, I immediately go, Metreon Zenthos. Because we both have problems and we're big DC people. So Astorath, in a lot of ways, I came into this expecting a lot of things, and there are some tropey things about this that were not there, but I really did want my variable line down below to be laughs and angelic, because there is a lot of drama going on here, and the Blood Angels are just
gasps and angelic.
Gasps and angelic, that's right. I wanted to, because there was just so many things where I was like, the drama. But it's kind of part and parcel with the Blood Angels, and it's one reason that I don't like the Blood Angels. I'm going to go ahead and say one thing about this book. I said previously that every time a Marine is shown going into the Black Rage, it just kind of gets me the feels, even though I don't really care about Sanguinius dying. I'm always like, oh, this book might have broken me of that. by the end of the book when people were like, they were just like, why have you betrayed our father? I'm like, I don't care.
So what I found really interesting about that though is when Jadriel yelled at Astorath, and immediately goes into, he's heard that question so many times.
So many times.
So all I have to say is whenever they write the Siege of Terra, they better have that question in there, because that is literally what all the Blood Angels say. I mean, you read any Blood Angels book, anyone falls to the rage, when they think they found Horus, that is one of the things that they say. That they do. When they're doing their final confrontation.
The final confrontation. But I did like in this how it was almost like an improv actor who has to stay. It reminded me a lot, like if you've ever watched any of the Christopher Guest movies, so like Best in Show and This is Spinal Tap and Waiting for Guffman, they talk about how they're basically given like a prompt. Like, okay, we want you to be like this, but go nuts beyond that. Or like, we want you to eventually get here, but go nuts beyond that. It kind of like, and yes, I did just relate the Black Rage to Christopher Guest, but I found it interesting, especially at the end there when Astorath is trying to talk to Jadriel, and like he would say something and then he's clearly speaking in character as Sanguinius, and that's probably not exactly what was being said right on the Vengeful Spirit, but he's reacting to the information coming into him, saying in character.
Right.
So it felt, there was an interesting improv bit, and I did like, so sorry. We'll talk a lot more about Bedevoir later, but when Bedevoir starts to fall to the rage and he talks about like how he's in a forest. Oh, but no, suddenly there's metal walls and he's in a spaceship and he tastes the recycled air. And no, wait, no, we're back to the wood. Like that falling in and then coming out was really well done. Moving into what parts stood out to you, the whole thing with the Black Rage I thought was handled so nicely.
One thing I really liked about also with Bedevoir going into it, because he's one of the moments where he's like in it and he's seeing the battle take place in front of him, and he's like, suddenly I have all these names that I explicitly somehow already know, and I was like, that's, I can't imagine just suddenly just kind of like you're just going back into someone else's body. It's very weird, because it's like you're reliving Sanguinius's memories, but at the same time you're reacting to everybody else. So I thought that was that they did that so well, and David Annandale also handled that very well in Lamart. I always say Lamart because I always pronounce it like it's French, Lamart, but it could be Lamartez. I could be totally wrong. I don't know. Regardless, but he does that a lot, because like you'll hear some of them say the same things over and over again, like what Sanguinius probably said. But then like when you have this situation like here when Astorath was asking him, telling him, it's like, remember yourself. It's like, no, right. You've already lied so much. Well, we don't know if Sanguinius said that, but that might have been something that Sanguinius would have said if Horus talked to him gently, maybe. I don't know.
It was in character.
Right.
Again, yeah. It felt like this, like, and like they talk about how at one point one of the Marines was calling out for apothecaries, long dead apothecaries to heal long dead brothers.
Yeah.
And that part. So the whole just like going into the Black Rage, I'm kind of over that, but that part really did kind of hit me, because I was like, can you imagine? And we'll talk a lot more about this later, but especially for the Primaris Marines who were like, come again? Like in Astorath, I'm sure like at this point, Astorath can probably name every single person who was on the Vengeful Spirit. Like he probably knows the entire cast of characters.
Right.
Because he's heard it so many times. That part actually did make me really sad when he's like, been asked this so many times. Like,
and he never answers them.
What do you say, right? Like, you already, it's very much of an of mice and men sort of thing, where you already have to put down, or maybe like Old Yeller, probably closer to Old Yeller, really.
Yeah,
like,
Rabid.
You already have to take these guys out behind the shed. Like, so upsetting. It would be kind of mildly interesting, though, if he just was like, like, if he did answer them, like, to see what the reaction would be. I don't know.
For giggles.
Right? Like, well, because I read a book, changed my life, and like just to see like them be like, that's not a good enough reason. I don't know what they were like. Would that force them to break character? I don't know. I the whole way that they handled the rage was pretty interesting, and he did a really good job with it.
Mm-hmm.
This guy Guy Haley knows how to write, apparently.
He knows how to write them blood angels, like, you know.
He does. Just as much as I don't like them, I'm like, you do really know this chapter.
He does, and at least he throws in little bones, like, what's that guy's name? The funny guy. Dolaman?
Oh, yeah. Dolaman.
Because he talks about how, like, he's basically
him a lot.
Like the court jester in Astorath, you know, entourage, and, you know, he'd make snide comments about, you know, he's like, you know, he likes you, and he says he doesn't like me, but that's a lie. And then, because Astorath would be like, no, I really don't like you. And he's like, oh, him. You know, I always like it when we do find the occasional blood angel that is light, takes things very, very lighthearted, and doesn't take things too seriously, because it's just like such a breath of fresh air compared to everybody else. But I also liked it because when he was teaching Bedevoir how to handle the black rage, like if you feel it coming on, this are the things that you need to do, and he's like, wow, you're so serious. He goes, and that is how you know how important this is.
Yes.
But I mean,
I like that.
So, okay, I'll wait, because you're going to ask the question.
Okay.
I'll wait.
Okay. So, let's talk first about Astorath. See, gotta write that one. What did you make of his role and his characterization in this book? Because, honestly, for the book being called Astorath, he's not the main focal point of the story, which is
he's not. And I thought that was interesting. I mean, we've seen authors do this a lot, and sometimes it really works and sometimes it doesn't. And I really wish we could have had more from Astorath's point of view on things, and that's only because we don't really know much about him. We just know that you don't want to see him ever.
No.
He's like the most depressing chaplain ever. The chaplains are supposed to be like, you know, rousing of spirits, and instead he comes in and determines which not the fallen, but which have gone to the dark rage need to be put down.
Yeah. Which ones are Old Yeller and which ones can go in, you know.
Can go hang out with Lamart and, you know, be in the, I forget what they call it, the black, or the death, the
Death Company, isn't it?
The Death Company, yeah. Like, you want to say Death Guard, but it's like, it's not the Death Guard, it's like, it's a Death Company.
That's a whole other, that would be kind of interesting.
That would be interesting. Kind of funny. But
I don't think Mortarion would react well to that.
No.
Why did you betray us, Horus? Excuse you. That would go over very well.
I don't think Mortarion has much love for Horus either.
I think that would actually make it a little bit worse.
It's like what did you call me?
Always the bridesmaid. It's always the bridesmaid of the Primaris.
You call me? That's an insult, sir.
I'm my own Primarch, thank you. I'm just as important as the rest of them.
I am actually responsible.
Fulgrim would react as well. I think he would not have a good reaction.
I am the reason for the Council of Nicaea. Let's be real here.
I was super important, and there's a picture of me on Terra, by God. Just nobody knows my name. Anyways, moving on.
It's probably because I can't understand.
You're right, though.
Because you have a mask over your face.
Because you're too angry at your stepfather. Yeah. I do love how they always describe his voice sounding like tombstones hitting. But no, you are correct that somebody asked you this. Do you think it worked?
Yes and no.
With them not. I agree.
I mean,
in some ways it works.
I mean, I understand why he split it up, where he kind of had the first half be like a flashback and explaining like maybe why they kind of need his help. But I think he could have done more. Like, I feel like it ended too quickly. And the reason, and I just think that because, all right, I'm just going to go ahead and get into it. I'm pretty sure that the reason for this entire book is because in Devastation of Baal, it clearly says that the Primaris cannot succumb to the Black Rage. clearly says in Devastation of All. And then Games
Which is wrong.
And then Games Workshop wrote their new codex for the Blood Angels. It's like, oh, well, we didn't say that was accurate. You know, this is what we're doing, and he's wrong. And so this to me was a book that explains why they thought that. And oh, by the way, that's not true. It's like, this is almost like Guy Haley's way of verifying in the Black Library lore that what he said was true from a certain point of view, because they just honestly didn't.
Very much so.
They just didn't honestly know. And to the point the Primaris, they hadn't even heard of it. They weren't really sure what it was, so they had never been prepared for it. So the only thing I would have liked for this to be longer is just for Astorath to realize this and start preparing. He's to prepare the Primaris chaplains. Like, this is what your duty is going to be, and this is what we need to work on. And instead it just seemed like, I don't know, like, it just kind of got done. It just, like the last couple of chapters just happened so quickly.
So quickly. And so this material gets covered, more or less. That portion of it gets confirmed and covered in Darkness in the Blood.
Right.
Like, had this book come out like pretty much on the heels of Devastation of All, I'd be like, I would agree with you. But this is already known. Like, oh, it turns out the Primaris can fall to it. Yeah, no, we know. They talked about that in Darkness in the Blood. The codices have talked about this. Like, this is a known thing. So this book kind of felt like closing the corral after the horses have left. Right? Like, we know. I think I would have liked to have seen this, and I would have had a better reaction to that portion of it. Y'all, these red foil pages, every time they catch the light, I'm like, damn, that's a nice looking book. I would have reacted a little bit better to it had it come out before, had we read this before Darkness in the Blood, because then when we read Darkness in the Blood, I would be like, oh, okay, yeah, like now, because now they're just basically confirming what we saw in Astorath.
I think what this is that, so, you know, they talk about it in Darkness of the Blood, like it's already been a thing, but this is like how they got there.
Right. I still would have liked that to have come, I think, before.
So it's kind of like a 1.5. If we're going to
kind
go,
of,
like,
yeah.
with
it feels like the lost
Dante's
chapters
story.
To the end of the Dante story, or something like that.
Well, I guess
right?
it'd be 2.5, right? Because it goes Dante, Devastation of All, and then Darkness in the Blood.
Yes. So I think I would have liked that better. I think I really wanted to get to see more of Astorath. And like, I understand that he's the superimposing figure, and if they mentioned one more time that his gaze is difficult to bear, like, I got it. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more, because like that last chapter where he's dealing with Jadriel, you're like, oh, this is really the first time we get to kind of see like his inner workings and understand him a little better as a character. I think I would have liked that a bit more. I really didn't care how humans reacted to Astorath. Like, the whole guy with, what's his face? Idrin.
Yeah.
I didn't really care about any of that. I was like, oh, I don't care how they feel about Astorath. Bedevoir was interesting, because this is, you know, a Primaris getting to see.
I like Bedevoir. I kind of hope that...
I really liked Bedevoir.
I hope that he comes out of it, because it is possible to snap out of it, and I think just where he was with it all around him, he's never had to learn how to repress it. Plus you got those, you know, balloon aliens trying to, you know, they're also messing with everything. Yeah, the little jellyfish, they're messing with things.
The Man of Wars
at the same time, you know. So they're Hanar. Okay, they are
Hanar.
This is what the Hanar have evolved to, because they've already met the Enkindlers, and this is what they've become.
So let's talk about this really quick,
as we have mentioned before, Mass Effect is totally canon.
100% canon. So let's talk about this, though, because I feel like this is probably the most interesting and biggest piece of this book. The Blood Angels have been negligent in their induction of the Unnumbered Sons, to say the least. First off, does this surprise you?
No.
I was actually a little surprised because, like, with the Dark Angels, Angels, I understand because you don't accidentally become fallen, right? Like, you don't like. I mean, I guess technically if you trip, but like, you don't wake up one morning and I'm like, sorry, Luther was right, y'all, because you don't know who Luther is, right? So that makes sense. But this is like, and I just keep thinking of in Devastation of Baal when Gabriel Seth talks about how they embrace the flaw and they embrace this portion of them. Like, they know that this is something that we have to deal with. Like when Bedevoir talks about seeing the Black Rage on the Indomitus Crusade, it kind of reminded me of like the stories we're starting to hear from like November and December of 2019, where they were like, yeah, people had like weird chest conditions and we had no idea what it was. Right. And then right after but like, it's that type of thing when he's like, we didn't know what to look for. That seems like a pretty big oversight to me, that you guys would at least the thirst, understand how to use it, understand how to control it, understand that if you don't, it's going to go bad.
Which I can't put totally on Dante for that, but when they when they spread them out, like, it was those chapters,
very much so,
their responsibility to educate. And I think the Red Wings, because they talked about how many problems that they had. Like, I don't think they even have a chapter master right now, it didn't sound like. And really. So they're kind of like rebuilding, so they get these unnumbered sons and they're like, okay, now I got to deal with this. And then they hear, oh, but they can't get the Red Thirst or the Black Rage. It just never occurred to them that maybe they need to learn how to treat it when other people fall to it, so that they're just not like, dude, what are you doing? What is wrong with you?
What's a Horus?
What's a Horus?
Right. I mean, I did like when he said, like, yeah, the guy started screaming about Horus, but we just kind of assumed that was the enemy psychers like messing with his head. I feel like that would have been a time for like,
what's a Horus?
What's a Horus? I just imagine like that would have been a time for like Ares to have come over and been like, okay, we need to have a talk. Let me explain a few things, right? Like, this is such an awful comparison, but like when you hear about young women who start their period and we're like, I didn't know this was going to happen to me. Like, oh, maybe we should have talked about that. Like, you hear about that happening to a lot, right? Like, I know a woman that happened to. She was like, what's going on? Kind of like that. Like, you educate your children, educate your brothers so that they know these things, right? That's terrible.
Or at least, at the very least, to know what to look for so that you can call the chaplain.
Right? Like, I feel like if for a while there, like every store you went into was like taking temperatures and stuff like that. Here, just because of COVID, I feel like there would be like a similar type of check for the Blood Angels, right? Like, look for a temperature, look for elevated heart rate, calls of Horus.
So,
I'm just saying that we're handling this COVID situation better than they handle the Black Rage.
Rorschach ink blot. What is this?
Definitely not Horus. Right. It's okay. So it was like freezing in this room and now it's burning up. Anyways, my life is difficult. Yeah, like, you would think that they would at least have this conversation. That actually really surprised me. But that's very interesting, because if the Red Wings were nearly decimated at Baal, and we know a lot of these chapters were, this isn't going to be the only chapter. Like, I feel like Astorath, like, I feel like one of the other points of this book is that Astorath is going to be very busy. Because the Unnumbered Sons, like, before you get the words out to all the chaplains, news doesn't travel fast in the Imperium Nihilists.
Yeah. That's kind of a problem at the moment.
That's kind of a problem. I actually am not worried about the flesh terrors at all.
Oh, no, because
they're gonna done educate their Primaris.
If they even accept any Primaris, as he said, they're just...
Well, they say in the book, right?
Well, he said he didn't want to, because he's like, they're just Ultramarines in flesh terror armor.
Well, right, but in here, I mean, they were like, look, like, Lord Seth, it was politics, like, Dante, and that didn't occur to me either, that Dante couldn't just be like Oprah, you get Primaris, everybody gets Primaris, like, you have to pick and choose, right? Like, the flesh terrors are kind of lore important. They have plot armor, so they definitely need to get some Primaris. These other guys, maybe not. Nobody really knows who the Red Wings are off the top of their head, really, except for like the diehard fans. So less plot armor, less Primaris.
At the same time, though, with like most of the chapters kilt, there's like a little bit more unnumbered sons to go around. So, but I'm hoping though is that we don't suddenly hear about these 10 other chapters that survived Ball as well.
Yeah, if that was my one thing reading this book, is I was like, I swear to God, if we are going to have to be treated to a whole bunch of short stories now about, oh, do you remember when those guys got devoured? 5 of them didn't, and now they've got a whole bunch of Primaris, so they're back. Like, but I feel as though this was kind of Guy Haley saying, like, okay, there's still hope. If your favorite successor chapter got devoured, here's hope.
Don't give him hope.
I mean, it's Guy Haley. Hope springs eternal. But that was at least interesting to me, that I was like, oh, that's something y'all probably should have talked about, and that could be a problem, and we could see more of that, which just add it to the list. Add it to Dante's list. It's not going to Robbie Bobby's voicemail. It's going to Dante's voicemail.
No, Dante's a busy man. There is no
Everybody
rest.
as busy as Robbie Bobby.
There's no rest for the weary.
No.
And since he's now been made Lord Regent, so he's like the Lord Regent, the lesser, of the whole Imperium. I mean, because the Emperor is not doing anything, so it's Gulliman who's really the big E right now. What?
You say that like he's just sitting around, like he could be doing something, but he's not.
I mean, he's not doing anything.
You make it sound like he's watching like The Price is Right, sitting on his couch.
No, he's just he's just like this statue. He's a relic, a literal relic that is sitting there. And I know he's got the Astronomicon and all that, but yes, that's very important. So I'm not saying that he's not doing something important, but he's not ruling. Is my point here, bitch? He's not ruling.
Sorry, I didn't like your fucking Blood Angels book.
I don't care.
No, I know. It was just really funny. You're like, he's not doing anything. It's like,
he's not ruling. It's Gulliman who's stepping up and pretending to let the Council of Terra still do things, when he's just like moving everything else in the background. It's like, no.
And low key might fucking kill you if you don't agree with him.
I'm
all cussy tonight.
I mean, it actually kind of makes me think of Sonic the Hedgehog movie. Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it.
Okay, it's actually really cute. It's cuter than it should have been. But there's this great scene when Professor Eggman first shows up, Jim Carrey, and he goes right up to the military. He's like, who do you think's in charge here?
Yeah, that one.
That's kind of how Robbie Bobby is with the Imperium. Who do you really think is in charge here?
I always actually imagined him a little bit more like Bane, with the hand on the neck. Do you feel in charge? We're the Lords of Terra. This gives you power over me? Kind of figure it'd be like that. But no, you're absolutely right. Like, Dante's got a lot on his plate. And this, like, I feel like he could just add this to the list.
Yeah, he's
like,
ruling
cool, the Unnumbered Sons don't know about any of this. Awesome.
He's ruling a half an Imperium that he can barely contact. And, oh, by the way, there is still the Tyranids just hanging around, looking for the next lunch. He's got problems.
He does have problems. And the other interesting thing with the Primaris in here was that I liked the idea with Bedevoir, where he's like, this is a waste of our time. We're going around surveying the planets to see what's still okay and what's still under Lord Dante's purview, and this is not what we're built for. I like that idea, because we see that every now and then. Like, I look at Knights of Macragge, right, where we see these Primaris Marines who are just chafing at this, right? And they're like,
should always be fighting. And it's going down to the old school guys who are just like, okay, we have other duties as well, and our primary duty, and this is something that Gulliman would totally agree with. Like, your duty is to the people. Because Marnius Calgar was very big on with the Ultramarines, and I know that comes down from Gulliman being, the former king of people, like ruling people, a benevolent king everybody loved. He's the prime diplomat. they always talk about, him and Dorn, being the master strategists, but I would have to say that really with Guilliman, I see him more as the master diplomat, because he's the guy who he doesn't have like Horus's charisma by far, because I think he's so subdued, but he knows politics. He knows how to work the room.
Is, and definitely a strategist. I mean, he writes space book, but he manages. I would say that he's a strategist second and more of a politician first, and I don't mean that in a bad way.
No, I'm right there with you.
Understands people, because and yes. Dorn is the opposite.
Yes,
strategist. Well, politician's like way down there, because he's too candid.
As Alpharius put it, he can't lie. So
he can't lie, and how can you trust that person?
So he can't be a diplomat, because you do have to lie, or at least skirt around the truth, to at least. But I don't know, to protect people.
And I don't know that the Unnumbered Sons really got to see that as much, because they were just fighting. It actually reminds me of one of my favorite scenes/quotes from one of the Dan Abnett books, and it's from Iron Snakes, Brothers of the Snake. This one guy is kind of chafing because they have to go to like oversee this they had made a long ago promise to this planet, and they have to go oversee a new coronation. And the one guy is like, this is not what the Emperor made us for. And his chaplain, the older chaplain, comes over and he's like, if the Emperor asks you to fight, you fight. If he asks you to stand, like hold a pillar, you hold the pillar. If he asks you to stand naked on your hands, you stand naked on your hands. That is what you're for. And the guy's like, oh, I stand corrected. And it's one of my favorite lines. The guy says, no, you just stand. That is what the Emperor asks of you. And I always think of that. And so when he's just like, this is not what we're for, all I could think of is I was like, the Emperor asks you to stand. That is what this is exactly. And Lord Dante has told you. Because that didn't occur to me either until this book, where I was like, oh God, in the wake of the rift, he has no idea what the Imperium Nihilus looks like, really. Right. They had Tyranids everywhere. Like, they were kind of dealing with their own problems. Now,
right. But he's got to see, like, how are communications? Are there people loyal? Do I have to turn down insurrections that are going on? Are there aliens overrunning areas that we don't know? Forget the Nids, orcs. In this case, these jellyfish siren things. And
talk about them more in a minute.
And
yeah, like, demons, do we still have supplies? Are they still demons? Are they still able to fulfill their tithes? Like, do we still have a steady supply chain, logistics going? Are these planets loyal, or
we still need agri-worlds?
Yes. Like, I mean, just the list of things where it's like, it never dawned. It didn't really until we read this book that I was like, Imperial Nihilus must be a logistical nightmare.
It's hurting
absolute
cats.
Nightmare.
Hurting
it really is.
Galactic cats.
Hurting a lot of cats. And it's kind of hurting cats in the dark.
Right.
Because, I mean, it's crazy. So, which makes it, again, we're just adding to the checklist of crap going on for poor Dante.
We're just going to age Dante another 1,000 years and 12.
Oh my God. Seriously. Like, Gulliman's going to come back and be like, you okay, buddy? Like, Dante's going to be like, no. The enslavers are kind of a B-side cut. Like, when he was describing them, I was kind of like, it sounds like he's describing those like jellyfish thing. And then, because I don't think I've seen an enslaver story. I think I read one enslaver story like forever ago.
And this was my first one.
I was like, as far as the book club goes, I'm like, we haven't seen this at all.
No, this is my first one ever. Like, ever. Like, I'd never heard of these.
So, are the psychic jellyfish compelling? Like, did you like them as a villain or villain?
I mean,
I don't really either.
This is what I imagine the Hanar would do, to be totally honest, as they're preaching about the Enkindlers all over the Citadel. And if they could, they would just wrap their tentacles around people and just make them do whatever. It's I find it interesting how they come into the world, because they're like born in the warp and then they find their way through Psychers.
Right.
It's kind of crazy.
Well, I mean, they're kind of what's the word I'm looking for? They're like diet demons almost. They live in the warp.
Yeah.
But,
Right.
and then, but they come into the world through psychers. They live and feed off of psychers, but they're not necessarily, well, I don't want to call them, they're not malevolent. Well, I guess they are malevolent, but they're not like evil. I don't know. They're not like level or demon level awful, right?
No, and they're not like orcs.
But yeah, no, they're not like the orcs.
I mean, it's just one of those things. You know what they're kind of like? They're kind of like the gene stealers, if you think about it. They just slowly take over.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, and pretty much the same way, because I was like, well, because they're calling forward the guys to the Tyranids to eat everybody. These guys are just kind of
the same, except that they're not calling an external force to eat everybody because they're going to do all the eating, and then I guess they leave.
Right.
I don't know.
So I wonder if like the Hanar start eating all of the biotics, and that's where we get to.
You know what? That would not surprise me.
That's how we get here, you guys. The Hanar and biotics.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'd be
canon.
I would happily donate Jack to that cause.
Like straight away.
Yeah.
And I love her voice actress. I love Courtney Taylor.
Yeah,
but I would just be like, Jack, the Hanar want to talk to you.
Yeah, because when I got to that mission in the Legendary Edition, I was like, oh, right. This chick. Right. Okay. Fine. I actually did her loyalty mission just so she'd put on some clothes.
My husband romanced her, and I sat on the couch the whole time like this. Like, I'm so disappointed in you. I'm so disappointed in you.
You know, our friend Blake did too.
That doesn't surprise me, though. He just wanted to help the wounded bird. like that doesn't surprise me.
Oh no, Blake was pretty straightforward about it. He was just like the bra, like, yes.
No, for goodness sake. Yeah, no. Yeah, with my husband.
For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, just Google search Jack Mass Effect 2.
Yeah, she wears the laws of physics. Well, like she's a biotic, so but I wonder how much of her biotic powers does she utilize to keep that thing in place? Because the laws of physics do not apply to her.
All I can think of is that how much it chafes.
Oh my god, especially here. Oh god.
Not even there. Like, does she put band-aids over it anyway? I mean.
Anyways, you guys, there's lots of questions. So, but this is how we get here. So the enslavers, though, I guess I felt really bad because they just had to deal with the Tyranids. You're on the Imperium Nihilists. So, you've already got some demon problems, right? I was just like, oh boy, just add that to the list. Oh my god. And they mention that this is not the typical behavior that they expect to see from the enslavers. So I was like, oh good. The Rift is empowering another group of people. Great.
Well, it kind of makes sense, especially with because they talked about how close they were to the Rift. I mean, it would make sense that it kind of have some effects like Cadia, because if you read Horus Heresy, you learn Cadia used to be.
Right.
So that's, basically being that close to the warp does things to you. So it
does a few things to you.
So really, I didn't know anything about the enslavers. So just when they were talking about the light show from the warp and how they're psychers, I was like, well, that totally makes sense to me, because I mean they're that close to the Rift.
Oh yeah,
shit's gonna happen.
But why do you think they've been introduced now?
Because the Nids have gotten old.
You know what? That's really the only thing I could think of, is that because, and I know that I've complained about this a couple times, is that the Nids, I feel like, have gotten so overpowered, and to the point where they're not really that compelling anymore.
Mm-hmm. Because, to be totally honest, if I found out these were gene stealers, I would have been like, fuck this book. Just because I'm so sick of gene stealers and I'm so sick of the Tyranids.
Yeah, I think he needed something that was psychic, something that was Xenos, something that was not demonic, because the Blood Angels, I feel like, have had quite enough of the demonic presences, but you need something that makes sense. Being over there, we haven't. So I guess this guy's. It's also kind of interesting to know, as you said. All right, the rift is having some interesting effects on lots of species. But yeah, I was kind of like, huh. But you're right. Had it been Gene Stealers, I don't know that I would have finished it. I'm kind of over them. And
You would have finished it because it's a short book.
Well, that's true. But I would have definitely been a little grumpier about it. So let's talk, because the enslavers also, there was a lot of human element in this book, like a surprising amount of human element. Mm-hmm. We had Esmera.
Briefly.
We'll talk more about that in a minute. Celu. I'm going with Celu. And Idrin. So let's talk with Esmera.
We also had Esmera's whacked out friend.
Oh, her drug addict friend. So let's just like that. Let's focus on those two first. Did they add to the narrative really to you?
Yes. In that.
Did they?
Yes, because only in that, just to show like just how awful this world is. Like, you know, we've seen like awful worlds, but this is one where it's like not even the nobles have it good. You know, it's
that. Okay, that's a good point, and that was a little.
Like, everyone is hungry, everyone is filthy, everybody stinks. You know, it's just
that was the part where I was kind of like,
it's like it's just a matter of like, how much in the mud are you?
Right. How low in it are you?
Right. So if there wasn't the oil refinery there'd be like no purpose in ever living on this planet.
I mean, they mentioned that the eel meat gets transported off, and it is actually somewhat important to the food cycle, and that they have other stuff.
It's some delicacy for probably some navigator house somewhere.
Oh, no doubt. Which, like, hot take, eel is like when you go to a sushi restaurant, that is definitely like one of my lowest. I'll eat it before urchin, because that tastes like burnt plastic smells. But
I've not had either.
I just can't do eel. It's a little weird to me. But like, so when they kept talking about eel meat, I was just like, not a fan of eel. It's just.
But you haven't had
this bitchy snake.
You haven't had this eel though.
True, but
this eel could be like caribou meat of eel. It'd be very tender and good. You don't know, and we never will because we don't live there and it doesn't exist. So, anyway.
Wow, way to kill that one! Just like stomp it into the dirt.
Oh.
I guess I was expecting more from Esmera. Like, I was expecting like this was going to be her becoming a psyker, and like she was going to be pushing people towards the Black Rage. So when she basically explodes into a Hanar, I was kind of like, oh well, what was the point of her story? Like, I felt like he was trying to get us emotionally invested in hers and her friend's story, and then I was just like, meh.
So. At the same time, while reading this, I'm listening to the audiobook of Nemesis, and I tell you what, I kept getting stuff mixed up because there's a lot of similarities going on between them, and that it's just a lot about people on this planet at the time and what they're going through. And just trying to sort things out, trying to figure out what side are you on, because there's that here as well. You know, like, because they have the whole, like, you know, burn the witches and things like that. So I guess I had a little bit more tolerance for it. And we don't have that many right now in this post-Rift world that are just about people's lives on planets. I feel like we kind of get away from a lot of that. We've gotten away from a lot of that in the post-Rift world, because if you read like pre-Rift, you know, like look at the Uriel Ventress Chronicles, we learned a lot about planetary life, like with those. And it's the same thing with James Paul's Blood Angels Omnibus. A lot of planetary life. Horus Heresy, a lot of planetary culture in that. Here, I feel like it's just been so much like, you know, the rift, and we are not really getting into too much about how it's affecting normal people as much. Like, we really haven't seen it. The only closest thing we've seen it is Terra. But Terra's different. So we got to see, you know, the demons overrunning and whatever. That's just a completely different story. So this is like the first time we really got to really kind of dig down with people. And so when she did kind of get up and explode, I was just like, well, that's kind of anticlimactic. But at the same time, it kind of served as, how pointless their lives are.
That is true. That is definitely true. So along those lines, I did like the fourth time that they saw like gibbets hanging from places, I was like, damn. Like I just like to imagine that there was some blacksmith who like specialized in that and like business was dying. But then this happened and all of a sudden business is booming. Like he was like, this is my time. I will make all the gibbets. Because like the first couple he saw,
waiting my entire life for this moment.
Exactly. He was like, this is our time. We're gonna be nobles after this. Like the first couple of gibbets, I was like, oh, okay. And then another gibbet, and another gibbet, and another. And like I was like, where are these coming from? They just had them. They were like, I mean, they were decoration before. Now we just use them. Because that's like a lot of metal work that goes into one of those. So, but you're right. Like that when that did happen, there is always that point. But I think that's a point in Warhammer 40k that I feel like I've gotten that memo. That life is brief and pointless and awful in Warhammer 40k. So when she exploded, I was like, oh, God, I didn't even care about her and her friend now.
Well, but we haven't really seen that much like post-Rift. Like I was trying to think of some, while you were talking, I was thinking of some books. Like I know we've read some, but I was like, but that was Penitent and Pariah. And those will take place way before.
There was a lot of allusions and references to sex in this book. I actually like that, like pointedly to the point where I was like, whoa, holy cow. Like the first time they mentioned it, okay, I got it. Whoa, okay, we're gonna keep mentioning this. Okay, and again. Like actually a shocking amount of that, because we had talked about once before how really non-sexual these books, but this one really leaned into that. Not that we didn't think that people weren't having sex, to be clear. But yeah.
I don't know. I kind of laughed when Edrin was like, I don't know how we can keep each other warm. It's just
I laughed at that because that was such a man thing to say.
Exactly.
Like such a man
basically
thing.
It's like, I'm bored. That's all that was. I'm bored.
Well, it doesn't matter how dire the situation, dudes. Like, I know how we keep warm. Yeah, I bet you do. Yeah, that one was. But then we did have Salu and Idrin. Their story, I was a little more invested in them. Not necessarily Salu, because she was such a little quaking leaf the whole time. Except for when Idrin tried to come on to her, and then all of a sudden she's like, no. I was actually a little bummed.
When they get killed?
When they get killed, I was like, oh, come on, let them go. I was kind of rooting for him when he's like, we're just going to go. And if they ask questions, we'll think up a story. Kind of rooting for him. I was like,
well, like when they said what we're going to do with him, I was just like, you can make them into thralls, because that's what everybody does. You get attached to humans and you take them on as pets. It's just what happens.
This is my pet human.
So
pretty much.
My only problem with killing them is then they launch Exterminatus. So I'm like, so what was the point in killing them? You could have just let them go and let them be happy for a bit.
They do mention before they virus bomb it, they do get some of the nobles off. So, I mean, remember, because Astorath said, they even say that, they have that conversation where they're like, we're killing this planet, and Astorath's like, we just can't even take that chance. Because, I mean, I guess their skiff travels 20 miles per hour.
But, when they said, we had 90% of the population at the evacuation points, they weren't evacuating anybody. It was just, now we got all the population there, the virus can go to work, and it doesn't have to find anybody. They're all right there.
Right. So, I mean, like, the odds of them escaping on a ship, it's pretty tiny. But, I mean, I guess they just can't take that chance.
I still didn't see the point when they dropped Exterminatus, like, shit, they could have let them live. Quite honestly, no one's going to believe her. And she didn't even pick up on it. Like,
he didn't. No, it went way over her head.
And even then, like when Idrin was like, no, this was something wrong. She's like, okay, whatever, you're crazy. And she just kind of ignored him. And I think a lot of people would have ignored him.
I think so too, but I think it also does show that cold and callous side of the Space Marines, right? That like, we've got to protect the humans and these are the people, but those guys know something they're not supposed to, so we're not taking chances on this. Like, it's kind of like the Dark Angels.
The Space Wolves have done the same thing. If a human had seen a wolf and been like, well, shame.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, there are just some things that are too important, right, to the Space Marines.
And
And I
like you
think
said, in the Fallen, shame.
shame. Yeah, they just, it's, and it's always one of those interesting things, especially in this book where they spent so much time of like, no, this is our duty and we protect the humans and these are our people and these are the people that we're charged with and blah, 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 blah. Oh, but they do know some that, like, even we have a line. Like, we are all about it. Until they step over.
Right.
Then we have a problem, right? Like, and there are, I mean, those are 3 chapters that we just named off the top of our head, right?
Well,
Like,
and Alfarius, which we discussed over our Patreon episodes, he I was like, that's what they would have done as well if he hadn't happened to get attached. I've seen it in Grey Knight's books. It's like, oh, you saw us? Sorry about that.
you saw a demon or maybe saw a demon? I mean, look at all of Fenris, right? Can't take chances. So it's sad. That just made me, I was like, oh man, I was rooting for you guys at that point, but sorry. It just, to me, at times, some of the stuff kind of felt like filler, page filler with the humans. Because you have Astorath. I want to know more about Astorath.
It did feel like filler, which disappoints me because it's such a short book to begin with.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like there's Astorath. There was so much we could have done from Astorath's point of view. Just learning just a little bit more about him because he's actually a character who rarely shows up in Blood Angels books.
Very much so.
I mean, Mephiston shows up more often than he does.
And we get to see, I mean, again, I'm not a big Blood Angels fan, so I would argue we see, like, too much of Mephiston. But I feel like if you can, like, looking at Darkness in the Blood, if you can dive that deep into Mephiston, surely you can dive that deep into Astorath. Like, give us a better, because he really does just kind of feel, and I know that that's kind of the point, is that he just feels like this Grim Reaper who goes around and he takes them out behind the shed and he pulls the trigger. I know.
He is the Grim Reaper.
He is, but still, I would like a little bit more of a characterization other than just that. And I don't want to have like a bunch of like him throwing himself around the room about how awful it is that he has to do this.
No, I kind of like how stoic he is about all that.
Very.
And I actually really enjoyed his interactions with Doloman. That's and even like
Bedevoir.
Oh yeah, his interactions with Bedevoir. Just when they happen to get him, actually like talking and interacting with them, it's very interesting when he does. It's a little unexpected. Like as much as I love Mephiston, he's not that interesting interacting with other people. He's really not.
He's really not, and it's actually kind of painful in some places.
Right. So yeah, I mean, but he's a chaplain, so it stands to reason that he would be, except that he's not like any other chaplain at any other chapter.
Right. He has a very specific role.
He's the chaplain you don't want to see.
You don't want to see him. Nothing good happens from this. So let's talk about Bedevoir, because we talked a little bit about him. But did you like him overall as a character?
Mm-hmm. I did. I really did. Because
he was.
I mean, he started off as your stereotypical Primaris, kind of like the one in Sons of Macragge. I don't remember his name.
Right.
But, just as various like, oh, I'm so much better than all of you guys here. And I was meant for more than this. This is like wasting my talents of looking at this mud ball. So the other Marines have to put him in place and all that. And even like, one of his companions, Lamorak, has to put him in place, just like in Knights of Macragge. We had that as well. But then you get to see him grow. And then when he realizes he doesn't know everything, that's just always kind of a nice moment when you have those cocky characters who realize that they don't know everything. And especially when he sees Astorath for the first time and he realizes, here's somebody he can't look down on, because even though he may be taller than Astorath, he can't meet him in the eyes. He's still looking away like everybody else, and he doesn't understand why. So
Right.
I will really be sad if he goes into the death company or if they have to kill him. Because I just feel like he didn't go that far for that long and they could bring him back.
Right. I definitely, I thought about the guy from Knights of McCrag too. But that guy I never liked. Never liked that guy. I mean,
the one redeeming thing he did was defend the humans and died for them. That was like...
Even then he was pissed about it.
He was pissed about it.
Even then he was like, ugh.
Yeah.
But, which I actually kind of liked. Like, at that point, like, that type of assholery, like, when you cling to it, like, that was kind of impressive, actually. At first, I was like, oh, he's just going to be another one of those guys. But he was more human, and he was curious. And once they start to explain, they're like, oh, no. Like, right. Lord Dante does not do anything casually. And this is, like, these are his reasonings, and this is what he's trying to do, and try to understand a little bit. I liked him a lot more. I liked that he, as you said, he kind of learned a little bit and he had to kind of take a step back but was still kind of a dick, right? Like, it didn't change his whole core personality.
Which is actually why Astorath liked him, which I just find that just endearing about Astorath.
Well, I actually really liked that, yeah, because this guy's not a sycophant either.
Right, that's what he prefers.
Yeah, because he keeps Dolomon around, very much like the Space Wolves do, right? Where you have that constant naysayer next to you, and Dolomon, the court jester, but always willing to say, like, yeah, but is this the right thing we should be doing? And, like, are we sure about this? Like, he likes having those people around who aren't scared and intimidated of him and just kind of, yeah, whatever you say, Lord Astorath.
Yeah, because that's about how Dolomon looks him right in the eye. He's like, that's stupid. You know, just...
Right? Exactly. So the fact that Bedevoir is kind of like, but right, like, there's something a little refreshing about that, because I imagine that Astorath either has probably has met his fair of sycophants within the Blood Angels, but probably more just the people who are like, whatever you say, boss, you're in charge, you got it. That scene in Naked Gun when he pulls the gun out, you're in charge, he's safe.
I mean, like, going all the way back to the Horus Heresy, that was one thing that Horus, his original Mournival, that was the point of the Mournival, was 4 voices that didn't agree and would always keep him grounded.
Right, and did not just turn into yes men. And so I really liked that. I was wrecked when he's going through the forest and all of a sudden they talk about the metal walls showing up and him tasting recycled air. I was like, don't you do it. And then, like, because, like, he got the prep, but I did like the idea that this is something that's so powerful. A 5-minute prep talk from your new BFF is not going to overpower this.
Right.
That's how powerful this is. I liked that, but I also kind of hated it because I was like, dude, I liked you.
I was sad they killed off Ares. I liked him.
I liked him too. I actually liked a lot of the guys that they introduced, which is that bears notice since I don't like the Blood Angels.
Well, I
really liked a lot of them.
As far as Blood Angels go, these actually weren't as dramatic as...
They were pretty personable, actually. Yeah, no, I agree with you. And it is nice to see, like, if you just give these guys, like, a smidgen of personality and take away... Maybe it's because there were no chalices. They took away their chalices, and all of a sudden they were like, oh, okay, we've got personality now.
That's one thing I've always liked about Dante, is that he's retained how human he is.
Right.
And he's been, chapter master for 1,000 years, so he's lived for possibly 2? We don't know.
Right.
So, yeah, he's just that personable.
Right, and that's always one of the things that people say about Marnius Calgar. Very personable, like very human.
Yeah.
Not necessarily as personable, but has that human side to him, right? Actually, all of, like, the really good chapter masters that we like, Shrike doesn't have so much of that, but right, like, a lot of them have that, like, human
Shrike
side of them.
Focused.
Yeah, that's a way to describe it.
I think Marnius Calgar, though, is very personable. It's probably, like, I've just read so many books, like, about him where he would go with the people and help the people and just sit down and talk with them, and they'd, like, get down on their hands and knees and praise him. He's just like, just don't. Like, I always imagine him being kind of like T'Challa is like, no, we don't do that here.
We don't do that here. Exactly like that. But I was sad. with Bedevoir. I was like, you can't do this. And when they talk about putting him in stasis, and they're like, he will still serve.
I'm just because it is
somebody get a blunter next to him.
It is possible that he can snap out of it even after stasis. Because because it has happened several times. They remove them from that situation, and it's just like, what happened? Like, I had a dream. I was sanguineous. No, you didn't. You didn't.
No, you didn't. Yeah, exactly. The Jedi mind trick comes out. You did not have a dream.
That's where you bring Mephiston in. No, you didn't.
Pretty much. Yeah, like, this never happened to you, and all is well. Remain calm. I was bummed about it, but you're right. I'm legit rooting for him to come out of this.
Right.
So, and I know we kind of touched on this earlier, but, like, what purpose did this book really serve in the overarching Blood Angels narrative? And would you call it an essential read?
I would not call it an essential read. This is really something that's for Blood Angel fans. I think the overall purpose in the lore is, like, as I've said, it's, how when they realized, this is what made them realize that the Primaris could fall to the Black Rage. That's really it. Just to kind of look in the day of the life of, so you're talking about, like, actual lore, that's really it. You want to know, like, well,
right.
So they know that Darkness of the Blood, we know it's because the codices came out later, negating everything that Guy Haley wrote, so he had to backtrack.
Right.
So this was like his backtracking in a way. Because Blood in the Darkness is like, oh, we never, we always knew that. This was like, and this one is, well, this is how we always knew that, how we got to that point.
Right.
That's really it. It's a chance to actually learn a little bit about Astorath, but not as much as I would have liked.
Right. And I think so to me, like, you're already covering lore that's already been established. He kind of implies that, oh, we saw this on the Indomitus Crusade, and, so, like, you knew but didn't know.
Right, but that book hasn't come out yet.
True.
The Indomitus Crusade.
Right. And that would actually kind of be interesting if in one of those books they touch on that. Mm-hmm. Like, the Unnumbered Sons are fighting, and all of a sudden one of them's screaming about Horus, and again, everyone's like, what is going on? Like, what in the actual? And again, and you have nobody there to be like, oh, that just happens sometimes. Right? Because, like, even if you have some, like, the Ultramarines with them, they're going to be like, I got nothing on this one.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Although Gulliman might react a little strange, then, like, turns around and is like, I'm sorry, come again?
Right?
He might have a little bit of a different reaction to that. That would actually be a little heartbreaking. So, because I don't know if he's familiar with it.
Can someone write that book? Please.
Guy Haley, please, sir. Please,
yeah,
sir.
Because there's, like, so many Guy Haley, so many Gulliman reactions that we know are on the fucking voicemail, and, like, this has got to be one of them. Eventually he's gonna see this, because now that he's, like, a part of it, because obviously he didn't see it in the past, because Sanguinius obviously didn't have that. He wasn't screaming for Horus for no reason. But also, like, with the Fallen, because we know that's on his voicemail somewhere. So just a lot of his reactions, and if he learns about the Wolfen, I could just see him just kind of sitting down and, McCragg's honor, just being like, okay, you know what? I can't deal with my brother's bullshit right now.
Just imagine him sitting in a chair and, like, starting to listen to his voicemail and then just sliding further and further and further. And by the time they get to this, he's just sitting there like, why? Like, that's when he goes and he finds the lion and wakes him up. He's, like, sitting on top of him, slapping him, going, Victor, I should not be the only person here. But that,
you wanted to be War Master. Damn it.
I think you're right, though. Like, this to me feels like kind of a deep cut. Like a deep cut. It's Blood Angels fans, a little bit of fan service.
This is for Blood Angels fans. And
it is.
And I like the Blood Angels. So, and I can see the deeper meanings in this, but I've also read more Blood Angels books than Jen, so I can kind of, like, see where they were going. But if you're not a Blood Angels fan, like Jen is not a Blood Angels fan, you're not you're not going to get anything great out of this book. This is not an essential reading. This is not something you have to have if you want to learn everything that's going on in the post-Rift world. Unless somewhere down the line when they're all like, remember the Red Wings and how important they are? And they're like, the who?
Right. Like, if that happens, okay. The only thing I can think of is maybe the enslavers. If they become a big major player and you're like, where the hell did these guys come from? They came from Astorath. The one thing I will say is that this is perfect for the book. This, which is going to be the real cover of the book. Wrong book. Doesn't fit this at all.
You know what it actually looks like, though?
An
avatar of
Megadeth album cover?
My avatar of Korn.
Yeah, it totally does.
I mean, because he's on a throne of skulls there.
Right, with the big X's on him, and the fact that he has black hair, unlike the rest of the Sanguine Sons. Well, the majority of them. But yeah, he actually looks like straight up like some sort of Night Lord in there. Like if you came to this book because you were like, I can't wait to see something from Astorath's point of view and really get to understand him as a character, you will walk away from this disappointed.
Yeah. I mean, you'll get some, but not what you would expect.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
If you're expecting like a Mephiston-like book, or like even like David Annandale's Mephiston novella, no, this is not it for Astorath.
No. No. It's an interesting story. I guess you're right. It just kind of pulls those things together, but still, that's been done. They keep coming back with the skulls on here too. Like I feel like they thought that this was going to be slightly different. It was fun. It was enjoyable.
I mean, even like the blood drops got like crossbones, like a pirate.
Right.
It's kind of weird.
Right. He kind of looks like a space pirate, which is kind of fun. I do like his axe. The axe is awesome.
I like this axe. I don't like the one on the inside.
Very much. Yeah, I mean, it was enjoyable enough, I guess. If you're not a Blood Angels fan or like a deep Blood Angels fan, I'm not sure I would recommend it.
Oh no, I wouldn't.
So the most exciting thing, though, unfortunately, we don't have our copies of it till like Saturday.
Probably Saturday.
But the most exciting part of this is that we are going on vacation.
That is the most exciting part.
That's the most exciting. That's exciting part number 1. Exciting part number 2. Godblight is coming with us. Because who else would you take on vacation if not Robbie Bobby?
Is that a question? Because of course I'm going to take.
To be fair, Mortarion would probably not be a person with whom I would vacation.
Well,
mostly because like Typhus always has to come and miss me with him.
Although Mortarion is like ready for COVID.
To be fair, you know what though? I feel like he would definitely not pass a COVID test or like anything else to travel. Like the guy, he's got it all.
Well, he's also he can't fit on a plane. He's kind of big.
Kind of big. Well, he can fly.
Right.
Like you'd be in the plane, he'd be flying alongside you, and you'd be like, "Thought you agreed you weren't coming."
And he's like bigger than the plane. He's like bigger than Robbie Bobby.
Well, and also with like the flies, you know what? We're gonna bring Robbie Bobby with us.
Flies?
No, we're bringing Robbie Bobby with us, and it's gonna be really exciting because what else do you read on a beach?
And Frater Matthew.
We're not bringing Frater Matthew with us. He sneaked on board in Gulliman's suitcase. Let's be real.
This is true.
Like, let's be really real. But that's going to be exciting. So we will have that. We will be taking our hardback versions, not our limited edition versions. Because if I got sand in that one, I'd be really sad. But we are going on summer vacation. We are bringing Dark Imperium with us. Super excited.
Because I don't know what it goes with the beach besides Dark Imperium. I mean, let's be real.
You know what? It's going to be better than reading Fabius Bile last year.
Okay. To be fair, anything would be. Sorry, Josh Reynolds.
I feel like there's a challenge issued there, and I'm not sure that I have an answer for it.
Well, if Godblight wasn't coming in, we would probably be reading one of Robbie McNiven's Carcharodon books, which would be interesting reading about shark people on Hawaii.
Beach. To be fair, and that's still going to be like, that's in the hopper still, but hopefully we're getting more new books coming out. But we were going to wait on Godblight till we got back, and it's just like, how long have we been waiting for this, really?
Right, and not only that, but when's the chance we ever going to have to like read a book like in the same room together, like kind of really going off of how we're feeling about stuff? So
right,
it'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be awesome. That's what we have for you guys next time, and we will be back.
God, I hope it's not like the third Fabius Bile book. We're just like, dear God. Because what if? Because I haven't read the third Mephiston book, but what if the Black Library also can't do threes?
Oh. I don't want this to turn into a Godfather situation where we're just like, we don't talk about the third one at all. It doesn't exist. I don't know.
That's what I'm convinced about Half-Life 3.
I can't handle it.
Half-Life 3 does exist, but it's so bad. They've convinced everybody it doesn't.
So first off, you heard it here. Half-Life 3 confirmed. And second off, I like low-key wonder if it was that, like, it was so bad and they would just had no ideas, so they were just like, forget it. Because I don't even want to tell you how old I was when I played Half-Life. Anyways, want to take us out, Carrie?
Don't tell me how old you are, because I was graduated from college when I first saw Half-Life, so I really don't need that. Yeah. Anyway, so you've listened to the Warhammer...
right?
Huh?
That can't be right, can it?
Yeah, it can. You've listened to the Warhammer 40k book club episode regarding Astorath. I think it's called, Angel of Mercy?
Angel of Mercy.
Angel of Mercy by Guy Haley. So be sure to join us for our next book by Guy Haley, Dark Imperium, God Blight. So we are an unofficial book club and not affiliated with the Black Library or any of its affiliates. You can find both the vidcast and podcast on our website, WH40kbookclub.com. If you like this episode, please like, subscribe, give a review, and all those good things to the vidcast on YouTube or the podcast anywhere you get podcasts. Don't forget, we also have a Patreon where we offer 2 different tiers of content for your viewing and listening pleasure. You can learn more about that at patreon.com/WH40k book club. Our site also has articles about our adventures in reading other Warhammer 40k books and short stories outside of the book club books. So please stay a while and read from a crag. I'm still Alfarius, just so you know.
You really should have gotten you some of that metallic red. Shiny.
You've forsaken your chartreuse.
No, you should get you some chartreuse.
Good night, everybody.